We have Dianne with us today again. So she is going to be working with you on some tips for working with audio that is a little faster. I'm sure that you are all starting to see how challenging it can be when it gets a little faster. I mean, it's challenging to begin with, right? But when it gets a little faster, it really gets challenging. So she's going to help you out today with some great tips. But first, I want to say thank you and congratulations. Everyone is up to date on their quizzes and exams. And so I thank you for that. Everyone's doing great. Yay. A few of you, just a few of you, had skipped over some of the, going back to some of the quizzes that I deleted because everybody had failed them. So I reminded a few of you, and now everybody's up to date. I think I have one person I didn't remind that's missing one score, and I will send that email after class. But everybody is on target and doing great, and I am really pleased. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand everything over to Michelle and let her talk to you all about.
Okay. Well, I want to congratulate the vast majority of you have completed all your dictations for this week. That's a big accomplishment. I do have a couple of people I emailed yesterday, and I will say that I failed this morning in checking the scores and putting the final ones in, but I will do that immediately after the meeting. I did send out emails to those of you who may have had some of your dictations had not been completed. And I do want to say, if you're having issues getting the accuracy or with speeds, I would like for you to schedule some time with me in this next week. So we want you all to succeed. That is our goal. And if you are having issues, we need to address them. I've worked with one person thus far, and her recognition may not be that great, but her voice is loud, it's nice and clear, and it's so just, I think what Diane's going to talk about today is going to be really helpful for this individual. But we want to help you succeed, so I will, Adria or I will dial in, we'll listen to your voice track, find out if there's any sort of problem that might be happening, because as I said, we want you to succeed. So if you would, after the class, you can private message me, and we can set up a time to do that, especially if you got an email from me regarding your dictations.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. We have, like you guys, you have Carnival coming up. We have Mardi Gras coming up. Some of you will be out there having a good time. Yay. I personally don't go out for Mardi Gras anymore. I'm not well enough for that. So I will be at home working on that day. So if any of you are going to be at home working on Carnival Day and you need some help, I could probably be available to help you. So keep that in mind. And as we said, if you're having trouble with your dictations, just work with Michelle and I one-on-one. We've had this happen in the past, and we've been able to overcome the issues that people are having with their dictation. So sometimes it can be a hardware issue. Sometimes it can just be that you don't know what you're doing wrong, but when we listen, we can figure it out. So do schedule some time with us if you're having any trouble with your dictations. We want to help you to succeed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to review some of the things that you will be coming across this coming week. And we'll start with the computer skills course. And I'm going to have Michelle talk you through some of what you're going to be seeing, some of the more complicated things, and I'm going to be showing you as she speaks. So, Michelle, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yes. Can you share your screen
Yes,
so that we can see? We'll start off with the Windows options, but if you could be at like your desktop or something like that.
yes, ma'am. Ready.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Let me move my things around so I can see what you're doing, so I'm not going too fast. Okay, here we are. So the first thing I want to talk about is Windows update options. Windows updates can be very tedious. Whenever there's a big update for Windows, we typically have an influx of calls because the Windows updates may have changed some settings that affect your work specifically. It has to do mostly with the USB audio devices and Windows changing the names of those things. And because of that, we like to set our Windows update options so that it's not updating every day. So if you would go to Start and the gear, and then Updates and Security. Adrienne and I do things a little differently. She searches for everything, and I usually use the shortcuts. Oh, Adrienne, you're in the same boat as me.
Really?
Yep.
I thought I had them turned off.
You can't even get to your Windows updates options.
I'll be darned.
Okay. We have a network. We have people who manage our computers, and so they have disabled that. So
Actually, they will probably have much the same experience once they're connected to their work networks with the judiciary.
okay.
So they'll probably find themselves in the same predicament.
Well, if you would go, what I'll do is I'll just take them back to the course and go over what's in the course.
Okay.
So if you go to, I think it's assignment 3, setting options in Windows 10.
While Michelle's looking for it, can I ask how many of you utilize the File Explorer on a regular basis? I am crazy about the File Explorer. I love it. And most people who don't use it just don't know about it. And so you'll definitely be reading about it and learning about it in the computer skills course number 4, the File Explorer. So pay close attention to that this week, because once you know about the File Explorer and everything you can do with it, you're going to be crazy about it. When I'm looking for a file, and I forget where I saved it, I don't know if that happens to you guys, but it happens to me. I just work, and sometimes I'm on autopilot, and I don't sometimes remember where I save things, and File Explorer lets me search. File Explorer has this little icon in your taskbar down at the bottom. It's just a yellow folder, and if you click on it, it brings up this, what I call my filing cabinet, because I can find anything and everything here. I can find everything that's on my computer by itself, or I can even go up to OneDrive or Dropbox, where our server is, and look for things on Dropbox. I can even go up here in the upper right-hand corner. There's a search button, and like Michelle says, I search for everything. Like this morning, I was searching for my own accuracy journal because I couldn't remember where I put it. And so I just do this. I type in what I want, and it searches my whole computer or all of Dropbox and allows me to then double click on what it is that I specifically am looking for and get to it very quickly. So you're going to love the File Explorer.
The CART class, and it is assignment 1.3. And so let me talk a little bit about this while Adria is scrolling. There are two types of updates that Windows offers: a feature update, which is a cumulative update that may have new features, new drivers. It is a big update, and they typically come out with at least 2 a year, is historically in the last couple of years what's been going on. And then there's also, what is the other one? Security quality updates. The quality updates are more for if you're using the Windows security. It has the updates to the virus software updates and things of that nature. So typically I prefer to run the quality updates more frequently than the feature updates. And so we'll go over that real quick. There's a couple of different things that you can set in Windows updates. You can actually set your active hours. So if you're going to be at work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., you would want to set your active updates to, your active hours to those times so that it doesn't update while you're in the middle of doing some of your work. Because if it updates while you're doing that, the computer could reboot on you, and you would not want that to happen. So it's imperative that you set your active hours to the hours that you will be working. Now, and these options have somewhat changed over time. So if we scroll down to the next page, the restart options. You can actually have it restart automatically or schedule a time of day that you would prefer it to be updated. And if we scroll down, you'll notice that it's grayed out here, but give me updates to Microsoft products. If you use Microsoft Office, which you do, it's important that that option be checked because you would want it to update your Office when it updates the computer. And here is the important part. Choose when your updates are installed. This is where you can defer your updates so they don't happen immediately. And where it says, the first option where it says current branch for business, this has somewhat changed. It may be Target or something of that nature. Unfortunately, I can't see it right now, so I can't tell you exactly what you will see. But what you will do for your feature updates, we have listed here our suggestions. For CART students, 30 days. For court reporting students, 60 days. If your computers are managed by your network, you may not even have these options. But I would suggest going with 60 days to give yourself more time. And what this does is this gives us an opportunity to download the updates and make sure they work and are not going to cause major problems. And typically what happens when we see the updates starting to roll around, we can address the issues and we can come up with a solution and post that information on the AudioScribe forum. So before the issue even happens to you, there's a solution. And the quality update, I suggest that you set it for 7. And that is it for the updates.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. And you'll be going through this yourself. And the options that you can set, go ahead and set them. But know that once your computer is connected to the judiciary's network, you may become, like us, unable to set these options, and their options will be default. And that's okay. Not a problem. Okay, the next thing that you're going to see in the coming week, let's see. Yeah, you're going to talk about the File Explorer. We've already done that. We'd like to talk about Accuracy Journal and the Nuance data folder. The Nuance data folder is basically where your Dragon files live on your computer. And if you right click on the start button and you click on File Explorer, you will see, if you go to the Windows C drive and then Program Data and then Nuance, you'll see Naturally Speaking 15 just the way I do. And if we double click on that, you'll see a folder called Users. And if we double click on that, you'll see every user profile that you have currently on your system. Now, the reason we like to introduce you to the Nuance data folder is because every 5 times you open Transcriptionist to dictate, Dragon opens. Well, every 5th time that Dragon opens, it makes a copy of your user profile. And it does that in the backup directory. So if I double click on Adria's Mask SBP, which stands for Sound Blaster Play 3, I'm going to double click on it. And what you see is, let me make this a little larger so that you can really see. Oh, I can't. Okay. What you see here is backup 2. This looks like checkpoint, CHKPT, counters, current, data archive, and TB. The ones that I'm mostly concerned about are the backup folders and the current folders. Look at those. Mine, great example. My current, the date on it is 2/19/2020. That's today. Whereas the backup, the date on my backup is 12/22/2019. So what that means is that I haven't backed up this user profile since the 22nd of December, but I have saved it today. So let's say that your voice files become corrupted. You can come and look at your Nuance data folder and say, well, my current is today. So that's not going to do me any good, but my backup's more than a month old. So you can go into Dragon and do a restore, which will bring your backup current, and it will overwrite the current user files. So if the current user files are no good, then your backup can be brought and restored over it, and you can be in a good place again. So that is why this matters at all. We want you to learn to look at this and say, well, I could restore my backup and I could be okay. Now, it's important to note that there's quite a bit of time between my backup and my current. So anything that I've added to my user profile since the 22nd of December, if I restore it, I'm going to lose it. But that's better than starting from 0. So that's why we want you to know about the Nuance data folder, because it is so valuable to know that you can go back. Now, keep in mind that if you export your Dragon user profile, like we've done already together, if you export it every week, that is the best possible backup you can be doing, because you are saving your work that you're doing every week. And right now, you are doing a lot of work. And I mean a lot of work. Believe me when I tell you, you will never have this chance again to build your user profile slowly as your speed increases. From here on out, once you start working, you're not going to have the time to do this. That's why we want you to save your profile every week. That way, if something goes bad, you can go back a week ago and start instead of starting back at zero, right? So we're all about trying to protect the work you have done. That is crucial. So export your vocabulary every week, and you will find that you will never get yourself in a position where you can't start again from a recent point instead of starting from scratch. Okay?
Can I add something to this, Adria?
Please do.
Okay, just to give you an idea of things that we've seen and reasons we've had to use these folders. There have been instances where computers have crashed in Windows or the operating system has crashed, but the data remained on the hard drive. The customer did not have a backup that was within a reasonable time frame. And so we were able to, or their IT people, when given the folder location, were able to grab their user profiles, so we had something to start with. So if something happens, your computer won't boot up. If IT can still get to your hard drive, there may be a way to save your user profile. And it may not seem like a big deal now, but as your recognition improves, you know, when you start doing transcripts and you're at like 95% accuracy and all of a sudden you go down to 80% accuracy, that's 10% more typing and editing that you have to do. And when your recognition gets that good, you're like, oh, that's such a waste of time. I wish I had a backup that was good. And so the reason we tell you this, and you know, if something does happen, you might email us and say, okay, my computer is down, but they can get to the data. Please tell me where to go. And we say, okay, have them copy this folder and this folder. And they might not restore them for you, or they could, but, you know, we come in feel like a white knight on a white horse to save the day.
That's right.
Files back and you're ready to rock and roll the very next day.
That's right. And that's what it's all about. It's all about you being able to do the best job you can do with the least amount of editing, because that's the point. The point that we want to make is that you should be so accurate in your dictation by the time this course is over that you are not spending a lot of time banging on the keyboard. We want you to use your voice, not your fingers, as much as possible, right? Okay, so speaking of your voice and how important accuracy is, we are going to turn it over to Miss Dianne, who is going to instruct you on how to improve your voice writing accuracy.
And good to see everyone. Let's hope that I can continue to make this work properly. I see my screen, so I'm sharing my screen, but I'm still looking at my thumbnail, which is fine with me because that's going to work. I don't intimidate myself that way. So, I want to tell you, first and foremost, congratulations. I mean, I am just kind of blown away by what all of you have accomplished and are in the process of working on. It's amazing to me. And I have read back every single comment on the thread, and there have been hundreds of them. I've read them, and I've tried to absorb them and picked out a few things that I saw that you were maybe asking about. How do you do this? How do you do something else? And I wrote them all down, and I even put them all together in 6 different pages that I can't find. So we're going to go from there, and let's see that my memory works all right. Anything that can go wrong can and will go wrong. And once you accept that, you just sort of take a deep breath and keep on going. But again, kudos to each and every one of you. That said, let me give you some information that I gleaned from some of those threads and from even this morning. I took my cursor and I went all the way across all of your beautiful, wonderful faces. And I noticed the same thing that I have noticed in the previous lessons that we've been involved in. I see ceilings, almost half of you, I see your ceilings. Sometimes you're sitting back, sometimes you're close. I realize that you are in a comfortable position because you are listening and absorbing, and this is extremely important information. Not necessarily what I'm going to say, but absolutely what Adrienne and Michelle impart to you. That said, I want to emphasize what I first mentioned that I'm sure has gone right out of your head, because everyone now seems to be focused on the race to the finish. All that I see, with a few exceptions, is not how do I get better recognition. I get, did you get my quiz? Do I have this? Is there something else involved? Please, quizzes are important, but you've got to get there. That's the end result. You need to know. You don't want to keep taking those quizzes and say, I'm getting 75%, I'm getting 80%, I can't do any better. Well, it's not the quiz's fault. It's not Dragon's fault. That responsibility lies with you. So I'm going to touch on just a couple of things. This is a skill. This is going to last you a lifetime, but you can't wiggle your nose and have it happen. That means that you've got to develop it. These are building blocks. Everything that you do, especially in this time period, you know, you've had 30 days. That's how long it takes to make a skill. I'd be willing to bet right now that there may be one or two of you that have taken the time to develop that skill. The rest of you are heading toward that finish line. But we want you to succeed. We want you to keep your health. We want you to learn this skill that you will improve upon as time goes forward. This is going to be with you for the rest of your life. I hope, heaven knows, you are so needed and all of you are so talented that you really need to take advantage of that. And this is your opportunity. So, first and foremost, your screen positioning is very important when you are dictating. You want to be, again, feet are flat on the floor. I want you to have your arms and your elbows at approximately 90-degree angles. I want your knees to be at 90-degree angles. Position yourself however you need to. Your desk and setup will not be your neighbor's desk and setup. This is for you. Where do you focus? Screen positioning is very, very, very important. And also, keep all of the tools within your reach. And that means that if you need a sip of water, always make sure that it's room temperature water, because you do not want to constrict your throat. Also, you don't want to be leaning over, reaching for something. Now, you have an advantage that court reporters don't have. You get to pause what you're doing. I wish we could have done that. In fact, there were times in my career of too many decades to count where I kind of wished I could have stuffed a sock in their mouths on occasion, because that's the way they were. You can do that, but it's still a waste of time. And then you've got to go back, and while you're trying to develop the skill on how you sit, how you face your screen, how you're going to be holding slightly your mask elevated so that you clear your palate for pure sounds, then we're going to talk about how you actually have to say these words. But for right now, that's the basics. Every week I've watched to see if anybody is facing that screen dead on. Again, you're leaned back, you're listening to this, you're watching this, and that's fine. I just want to bring it to your attention that you may need to pay attention to your posture. Also, your breathing. I gave you a hint. That's a nice way of saying I wanted you to do this every single day for the past 30 days. I gave you a hint. That hint was take 5 minutes of your time and learn to breathe. That's what supports these words that Dragon has to recognize and then lay down for you. Again, quizzes are wonderful, but let's get there the right way. The quizzes are going to come. Those tests are going to come. But why do you want to take a test 5 times when you can take it once and have 97, 98% accuracy? That's because you have to have everything supporting it. You've got wonderful software in SpeechCat. You've got Dragon, which is absolutely fabulous. But the most important thing that you've got is you. And I'm going to hush about that because I get carried away on it. Again, posture is very, very important. Please watch how you face your screens. And now we need to talk about protecting your voices. I always have water with me because things get dry. I also am very moist, so my mask will drip water if I'm not careful. So I take just a sip. Room temperature. You do not want hot water, okay? Hot water loosens your sinuses. You don't want to be sniffing and having it go down the back of your throat and coughing. You don't want to have cold water because that constricts your vocal cords. And that impairs the sound that you produce that Dragon has to interpret. No cold beverages, no hot beverages for those reasons, no dairy products. I know that may be difficult. You may want a cup of coffee, you may want a cup of tea, and you may want milk in it or creamer. That coats your tongue, it coats your throat, it coats your palate, it coats everything. Believe it or not, that can change your actual sound. We're trying to get the best sound and the best recognition you possibly can. And that means that you've got to take care of yourself. All right, no flavored waters, believe it or not. Most people love lemon and they say, well, it sort of clears my palate. Well, it may for about 45 seconds. And then it's going to constrict your vocal cords. And it may take them 4 to 5 minutes to relax. Okay? Sugar and sweetener also coat the vocal cords. And again, takes a period of time for that to relax. Your vision. If you're seated properly, please make sure that you don't lean forward and squint, which is what I'm doing. I have this new well, it's not new anymore, but it's a stand-up desk, but it's too far away from me. I'm too short an individual to use this properly, so I find myself leaning forward and I squint. I'm now wearing reading glasses and I never can find the right depth of vision. But your vision needs to be 20-20-20 rule. What does that mean? That means every 20 minutes, focus on an object that's 20 feet away for 20 seconds. Does that save your eyesight from the aging process and everything else that may happen to it? No. But it does help you, your eyes do not begin to constrict. You don't get headaches. And all of this is just something that you need to remember. 20-20-20. We're trying to get best sound. Well, your whole body contributes to that sound. So that's why I keep talking about these things. All right. I did mention to you before not to focus on the words dropping on the screen. I liken it to driving a car, and I believe I told you the same thing, but I'm afraid that you're looking at the quiz and you're not looking at the day by day by day by day building blocks that you are trying to lay one on another. You don't build a house on a piece of land that's eroding underneath. Well, you aren't going to be able to sustain this profession, and it is a profession. And you're not going to be able to control and keep this skill if you don't create it the proper way. And then just go back every week, maybe 2 weeks, and sit there and just breathe for a moment. Do a few exercises that we're going to talk about. So again, it's like my screen, I don't look at the words because I get a hitch. And if I look forward, every one of you now, if you will take just a moment and slightly squint and focus just a little bit ahead of you, you feel your throat contract. You squint your eyes, your throat contracts. 9 out of 10 do. So make sure you know that this is your workspace. This is what you need. It's not going to be what your neighbor needs. Adria asked me to talk to you about if you drop a word, and we all do that. Sometimes it's words because we don't know what actually it was. There are accents that are involved. Or maybe it's just someone that says it in a different way. It's not really a national, cultural, well, it could be cultural. It's not a national, global type of accent because they speak a different language, but it's because it's where they're from. I'm from the South. I speak slowly. I speak softly. I repeat myself because Southern women think they have to. I'm not sure why. But you really need to understand, well, you do need to understand. If you are listening to someone and you do not understand exactly what they are saying, or perhaps it's the way that they say that word, then you can try to figure it out, but by the time you have, you've lost the next two sentences. So it's easier. Adria calls this, and I want to get this right because this is not normal jargon for me. She calls it a forgiveness phrase. I really love that. Okay. She uses it's always a written form and a spoken form, just like your Q's and your A's and all of the other speaker identifiers and markers that you may use. But this is, Adria uses a tilde. Do you know what a tilde is? It's that little wavy line. Keyboards are different. My tilde is all the way to the left-hand side, next to the left of my one, but it's the uppercase on that next key. That's a tilde. She uses, I believe, 3 side by side. Or at least that's the way it looked when she sent me that note. That's the written form. Spoken form, something that Dragon doesn't usually hear. You don't want it to be confused with something else. Remember, this is a forgiveness phrase. I call it a placeholder, okay? Doesn't matter. They both mean exactly the same thing. So if someone says something that you don't understand for whatever reason, you can say the spoken form that you have assigned to that written form tilde. In her case, she says something like quack, quack. Well, I told a story years ago. Adria told us to call it quack. She didn't do the doublet I call it a doublet. She didn't do the doublet. She just said quack. I thought that was wonderful. Oh my gosh, let me do this. What a tilde. I used carrots, and I'll tell you about mine in a moment. Again, this is going to be something that you know, something you like, and something you're going to remember because you're going to use it constantly. And it needs to fly out of your mouth without a second thought. And that's where the skill comes in, okay? That's when you interpret how you have to say something so that you are progressing and not having an adverse effect on Dragon's recognition. And I can go into that a little bit more. You can ask some questions later if you would like. Anyway, Adria said, okay, let's do this. Put a character up there, and then your spoken form is going to be quack. Thrilled. I was so excited. The very next day, can you imagine what I'm going to tell you? I was in a deposition, medical malpractice, where they kept asking the defendant, so what was the problem? I mean, you went to this doctor, and what was the problem? He was a quack. He was a quack. That doctor was a quack. I can't believe this. And I'm looking at that, and they're looking at me like, what's wrong with this screen? And hey, it works. But you just never know when it's going to happen. So now Adria says quack, quack, which is perfect. I use the word Bugsy, and I use 3 carrots. And a carrot is that little TP. Mine's over the 6, uppercase of the number 6. And I put a space between mine because it catches my eye a little bit more when I'm scoping. And then That's when I insert the changes. And then proofreading, it's just all smooth as it can be. But I use the word Bugsy, capital B, Ugsy, because Dragon hasn't heard that word, and it always seems to work for me. It may not work for you. We are all different. What works for Adria may not work for me, not because it's the word quack and I went to a med mal depot, but because we just aren't comfortable with certain things. You will find your center, whatever you are comfortable with. But try out some of the examples first, and only try out one or two of your own, because you may not remember what you named that, and you're going to sit there saying, oh, wait a minute, I've got a spoken form for that. Let's see. I've got that forgiveness phrase, or wait a minute, what did she call a placeholder? I've got one of those. Well, I'm sorry, you're now 5 or 6 questions down. Again, you have the ability to take your foot off that foot pedal and pause it. I didn't. Even then, if you bend over to the side, your foot's going to stay on that foot pedal, and then you're going to have to go back and find where you were. That's just a waste of your time. You want to be as proficient as possible, and that means that Dragon needs to understand you. You need to be able to go on and proceed forward. One thing about the placeholder or the forgiveness phrase, Dragon groups words together. It used to. I believe it still does, although it's a different platform now. But it still works for me. So in my mind, I'm assuming that it still does that to some extent. Michelle will absolutely correct me, and I always want her to, because there's just nobody like the Michelle, just like there is the Adria. Anyway.
While you're thinking of that, I'd like to just add a little something. Just in case you're not understanding what I specifically mean by a forgiveness phrase or Diane's placeholder, same thing. You probably have done this already, because I know I had when I was in your position. And that is, you're listening to audio and it's going, and you're keeping up, everything's good. But then something happens, like they say a word and you don't understand it, or it just gets so fast that your tongue gets tied and you get stuck. For me, when I got stuck, I would get anxious, and then I didn't know what to do. And what do I do? I've missed a word. Now I've missed 3. Now I've missed 4. Oh my goodness. So for me, that's why I call it a forgiveness phrase, because the minute I lose my place, I just say quack, quack. And then I pick up the next word I hear and I keep on going. So the idea of a forgiveness phrase is to forgive yourself for what you have missed and just jump back on that horse and ride. Meaning, grab the next word you can grab and go. Because the longer it takes you to forgive yourself and realize that those words are gone, you didn't get them, you're not going to get them, just keep going. By the time you have gotten to the point in your mind where you forgive yourself and you know you need to just pick up the next thing you can pick up and go, you've already lost multiple words or sentences. And so what I want you to do is automatically, when you drop and you realize you've dropped, I want you to just forgive yourself and move on. So whether it's quack, quack, oink, oink, bah, whatever, Bugsy, monkey butt, it doesn't matter what you call it. The only thing that matters is that you remember to say it and then move on. And the reason we have it put carrots or tildes, something different, the reason we have it write something is so that you know when you're in the editing phase, oh, I dropped right here. So I'm going to have to switch over and listen to the live room probably at this point right here because I dropped some words. So that's the whole point of the forgiveness phrase. and what it actually leaves in your text.
And wanted like to say one thing, because you did remind me of something that I found extremely beneficial to me. When you drop whatever that is, that forgiveness phrase, tilde, or if it's a caret, it allows you to pause for just a second, nanosecond. That's all it takes. Take a breath. Like Adria said, forgive yourself, and then catch up where you are in your normal dictation voice. If you rush to try to catch up what you have just forgiven yourself for, dragon, it's a different sound, because you're going to be hurrying. It's that rush for the finish again. Sometimes you can just take a pause, and that works wonders. When you're scoping, you see that, and like Adri said, that's when you listen to the live audio. And you'll know immediately what it is, whether it's one word, whether it's 5, whether it's 10. You know when you're ready to continue again. And
Diane, they're
yes,
asking
ma'am.
you to explain that you were talking about how dragon groups words.
Yes, yeah. I learned a long time ago. Well, I started with Dragon 4. You're now on Dragon 15. And it has, with each and every iteration of Dragon, it has improved and improved and improved and improved. What you have now that you are working with really does not bear much resemblance to what I started with way back when. And you're just so very, very fortunate that you have this ability. But remember when I told you learn a skill? Well, I learned a skill 20 some odd years ago. I still use that skill. It hasn't harmed me. It hasn't taken away from my recognition. In fact, if anything, I still think I get better recognition because I do group my words.
We find that if you grab words and spit them out in phrases, that you tend to be more accurate. So I listen for a group of words that make sense that I can say in one breath, like, Cuco, please state your name and address for the record. Aco, my name is Adria Terrio. My address is 102 Downing Street in Lafayette, Louisiana. So I'm trying to grab groups of words, and you're going to hear groups of words, and you're going to be able to spit out groups of words, because some things you're just used to saying, like, he asked me how I was doing today. I told him I was doing fine. These are common words. These are common phrases. You're going to find it very easy to complete a common phrase, and you're going to find it a little more difficult when they start talking about things that are unusual. So if it's an unusual word or an unusual phrase, you might find that it's easier just to get that word out. But for the most part, if you say things in groups of words, Dragon is going to better recognize them. And so you're going to get better accuracy when you use what I call phraseology, meaning instead of grabbing one word at a time, you're grabbing a phrase at a time. And when I say grabbing it, I mean you're hearing it and regurgitating it. Remember that for those of you that are really having problems getting the skill down, what I would suggest is that you try to treat it as a parrot. Just say what you hear. Don't think about the storyline. And what I mean by that is, don't be concerned about what's being said and being interested in the story itself. You sort of have to be instead just repeating sounds. So if it helps for you to think of it like this, you do not have to know the meaning of a word or even the pronunciation of a word to actually get that word across to Dragon. because most people only use words they know. And so when you are repeating what you are hearing, just try to duplicate sounds. And that may help you get to the point where you can be faster, repeat everything faster. So try that, and you might find great success with it.
I'll go ahead and give you a little example too of, you might be familiar with the check microphone that you have to do in Dragon. In this step, the computer listens to the sound of your voice. What you might do is, like in this step, the computer listens to the sound of your voice. And it's not pausing for a long time. It's just taking small chunks. And so that, because Dragon works on context, it understands the context of words. It knows that if you say this word, that the chances are of these previous two words going along with this word are like 97% is the chance. It's a bunch of logarithms and math behind all of this, if you could believe. So by phrasing it, you can do short phrases, you can do long phrases, whatever you can do. And remember, and I'm sure Diane's going to say this, to enunciate. Because if you're not enunciating, and also if you say the word wrong and it puts up a different word, you don't, like, for example, if in one of the dictations was the word interrogatories, okay? If you say interrog instead of saying the whole word, if you're doing correction mechanism, don't put in interrog because it's not a word. You would choose not to correct that utterance because it was a nonsensical word, and you wouldn't want to add that to your vocabulary because then you would have a conflict that will cause more recognition issues for you.
This is a good time for me to tell you one thing. Don't ever depend on one way to do anything. I do threes, okay? I've had something fail once. I've had something fail twice. So far, fingers crossed, please, I have never had the third thing fail. Let's hope today is not my first time. I don't know that my heart's going to handle it. But, okay. Sounds. One other thing before we get to that. In your untranslates, I always, in the untranslate, I will use the 8th field down for the name of, it just says insert name. And I put it in brackets. So if someone says a name, if they say Brown or White or Jones or Johnson, I've got that. Terrio, I may have a problem with. Gilbo, I may have a problem with. Some of your beautiful names, I may have a problem with. I used to have a U.S. attorney that was named DiGiammarino that I couldn't even pronounce until one of the clerks finally said, "Oh, it's easy. Let me tell you how to do it. You got to wiggle." She said, "You have to say DiGiammarino." And once I got it down, once I got the rhythm of it, I never missed it again. But Dragon, you also get a rhythm to your dictation, and that's with the grouping of the words, and you're also going to use a little bit of punctuation, very, very basic, so that Dragon understands you better. You're giving it, I am defining these words for you, Dragon, to put together, and then drop it once. Also, when you dictate a little bit of punctuation, and I'm talking so basic, it's a period, it's a question mark, it's a comma, and it may be a dash, because we use dash, which is and it's not the elongated dash. I use just the hyphen. That is my dash. But someone may change their train of thought, which I've done at least 36 times so far this morning. And then verbatim doesn't mean almost, so you would still have to say everything verbatim, but you're going, whoa, this doesn't go together anymore. You can always say, it accomplishes two things. You say dash, then pick up where it was. Dragon also, believe it or not, over time, because Dragon learns heuristically, HEURISTICALLY, means that it learns as it goes along. then you can complete those thoughts. So that's the purpose of it. So those are the punctuation marks I'm talking about. And again, it helps Dragon define this is a thought, or this is a clause, or this is a parenthetical. Some things are just second nature. However, comma, when next you saw them, comma, what were they doing then? Quex. I'm sorry, that's what I say for question mark. Do you recall? I believe you're using cac. Yes, comma, I do. Well, I also have phrases for that. But again, back to what I do. If someone says a name that you don't understand, and it's going to happen, I always, down in Untranslates, I put a bracket and I put insert name, and then I put a close bracket. That again is one of, that's really not a forgiveness phrase. That is my placeholder. And then when I find out what that name is, when I'm going across, I can change it. I can do a global search and replace if there's only one, or I may have to use that placeholder with an insert name several times. It's not, Dragon gets used to seeing insert name in the middle of it. Believe it or not, at least that's what I tell myself. Y'all may tell me that I'm incorrect, but that's all right too. I can always learn. Every day that I learn something new is a day worth living. So what I'm going to talk to you about, or what I'm going to show you, because some of you keep saying, well, it's just not recognizing me. And that's true. And part of it's because you really don't understand what Dragon is looking for and how Dragon processes things. Little itty bitty sounds, pieces of sounds. There's 44 of them, and they're phonemes. And I'm going to take less than 2 minutes to get you to listen to them. What I want you to try to listen for are these sounds that can be misconstrued as a breath sound. Okay?
The key sounds of English, 44 phonemes and 4 blends.
All right. Do I need to make that bigger? Can you see it?
I can see it.
Okay. Everybody else seeing it okay? I can make it larger. Let's do this. All right.
The key sounds of English, 44 phonemes and 4 blends. 18 consonant phonemes. B, k, d, f, g, h, j, o, n, p, s, v, w, g, z. 5 consonant digraph phonemes. N, j, ch, sh, th, and th. 16 vowel phonemes. A, e, I, a, a, e, I, o, u, ow, oi, ah, aw, 5.
We don't need to go any farther with that. But do you understand what I'm saying when I tell you that those breath sounds, either at the beginning of your words, at the end of your words, can be misconstrued as a sound that Dragon recognizes to mean a different word than the one you meant to say. So how do you get around that? Well, first of all, your posture. Secondly, make sure that you have a clear palate. Do all the things we talked about. Don't coat your throat. Don't use hot water. Don't use cold water. All of the above. But it's even more important than that. You need to bring what you've got to the table. You've got fabulous software with SpeechCat. You've got unbelievable software with Dragon. But none of those are more important than you. And it's what you bring. So I have a student who told me that I could use this. I want you to do two things. It lasts not even 2 minutes, I don't think. This was a homework assignment that she recorded and sent it to me for me to view, which is a fabulous way to see what someone's doing, just like you would send a voice clip Adri and Michelle, I guess, have access to all of that so that they can go in and really check on your voices to see if they can tell that this may be an area you need to work on. Watch her mouth. Watch, especially when she closes her mouth at the end of a phrase. Your phrase can be 2 or 3 words. Hers can be 10 or 15. Doesn't matter. We're all individuals. But she closes her mouth so that she's not breathing in that mask. Because Dragon's going to think that's different words. Or it could think that it's not the word that you want Dragon to understand. So, this is Lisa Marie.
Your request homework assignment on math movement.
Here we are, ready? There are, generally speaking, two types of evidence from which a jury may properly find the truth as to the facts of the case. One is direct evidence, such as the testimony of an eyewitness. The other is indirect or circumstantial evidence, the proof of a chain of circumstances pointing to the existence or non-existence of certain facts. As a general rule, the law makes no distinction between direct and circumstantial evidence, but simply requires that the jury find the facts in evidence.
I did notice, though, I watched as she closed her mouth when she was at the end of a phrase and taking a breath.
She did a really good job of moving her mouth.
Yes, she did.
Throughout the whole thing, which is the point that Dianne is trying to make, which is a very good point, because I think that we all become lazy in our speaking occasionally, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's a fact, something we all do. And I think that when we're dictating and we become tired, we can actually begin to hear those things as well. And what is important that you understand is that no one is going to be coming behind you and saying your diction is not as good as it should be. You are going to be the judge and the jury. Well, Dragon is going to be your first judge and jury. Dragon's going to tell you when it doesn't understand you by writing words other than the words that you say, certainly. But you have to be the person listening that says, you know what, I didn't say that very well, or I could have said that better.
Well, what I want to say real quick, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is the seal that you have. And the reason that we use this seal is because, and I have it off of my mask, but it allows you the most flexibility of moving your mouth in a natural way so that you're not like talking, this is Michelle. You're like, this is Michelle, and you can move your mouth more naturally and speak more naturally so that your speaking is not constrained in any way.
It's actually really cool, Michelle. It was really cool when you held it up for a minute and you spoke inside it. We could see your mouth moving, and that was perfect.
Hello,
that was really, really good. Yes, like that.
Hello, my name is Michelle Gilbo.
Yes.
I live at 1105 Susan Street in Breaux Bridge, Louisiana, Pirk. I just came back from a wonderful cruise, Pirk. I love Jamaica, Pirk. I may just move there, Pirk.
Okay, so that was perfect. I want to show
Sassy back from that vacation. My goodness.
right? I want to show you something else. This used to be Michelle's favorite seal. And my problem when I would use this seal is that my mouth could hardly move. So I couldn't use this seal because I could hardly move my mouth. And so my accuracy was really bad. So you see?
That's why you say quack, quack.
That, yes. Yes, indeed. And one of the things that I wanted to show you was when we talk about accuracy journal, we talk about the kinds of mistakes that Dragon makes. And I just wanted to show you some examples. So Dragon wrote intake. What I said was and take. And how do I resolve the conflict? By using better enunciation. Dragon wrote non-whites. What I said was non-rights. And I would resolve that conflict by creating a word swap for these words. Dragon wrote there appeared. I said there a bit. And I'm going to train both of those phrases in Dragon to correct this issue. Dragon wrote you how. I said you haul. And I'm going to create a real-time rule to make sure that when I say you haul, it doesn't write you how. Dragon wrote commercializes when I said commercial license. And how will I resolve that? By training both in Dragon. And finally, Dragon wrote SMAC when I said smack. And I'm going to resolve that by deleting SMAC because it's not an acronym that I use. So that's an example of some of the entries I have made in my accuracy journal, which you'll learn about this week, and how I resolve them in my vocabulary or in Transcriptionist.
Everyone, remember that correction mechanism will help increase your accuracy as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I'm showing you now, these are the things that, again, part of the building blocks. You need to do this every day for 5 minutes. Breathe. Get your posture right. Know where you are. Know where everything is. Do it for 30 days. Then you begin some of these other things. Were you able to see her mouth moving? And did you understand what I was trying to tell you about how she would close it so those extraneous breath sounds would not occur?
That was an excellent video. She was her mouth moved very well while she was speaking. And yes, I did notice when she closed her mouth when she was pausing, which I had never thought of.
Well, she was one of the ones that listened to me. Most of them. No, that's not true. I have been blessed with some wonderful, wonderful students and friends over the
I think
years.
it's a matter of some people not truly understanding the concepts. And I think that having visual examples is so crucially important.
It really is. It really is. And I'm so grateful that she has allowed me to use that video. Again, it was very, very short, but it was her homework assignment. And I said, just make a little video and send it to me. And out of, there were 19 in the class, I had 2 that did that. So, but I don't think I need to go back and continue that. I think everybody has gotten the benefit and the understanding. The second thing that you can do, what she did before she was able to make that video, is I would have them practice in front of a mirror. This is, yes, for recognition, but really it's more for you to see how things work. Because when you've got that mask, you don't understand what's going on. Let me see if I can find. All right. Every time I get kicked off, it's like some things get rearranged, and I do apologize. I am so sorry for that. This was just talking about the phonemes. What I mean when I say sit in front of a mirror. I don't care if it's in your bathroom. I don't care if it's in your bedroom, at your dresser. I don't care if you've got some wonderful mirror at some portion in your home, that you can be seated and make sure that your posture is the way that it needs to be. And I want you to play the television in the background or a radio station, whatever it is. You can play TED Talks. You could play pretty much anything. But I want you to look in the mirror. The sound is coming from behind you. You don't have the ability to see their lips, but I want you to watch yours. When you are repeating what's said, do you close your mouth? Are you able to hear a few words and then say those words the way that Lisa Marie was? You won't know what you're doing until you see yourself doing it. So I ask that you try to spend just a little bit of time with that. I promise you it will benefit you in the end. I understand if you say, nope, that's not for me, and that's okay. There are a lot of other tools that will work also, but that's what she did. She practiced in front of a mirror, and then she practiced in front of the camera. So, and do remember one thing. If you don't understand what you are saying, Dragon doesn't either. So that's what you have to work on. You need to be able to hear every syllable of every word. You need to make sure that the endings of your words do not have those breath sounds, and that's why you close your mouth. In through your nose, your words flow out over your exhaled breath, and then you close your mouth so that Dragon's not trying to make something else out of it. Okay. The other things that you need to know are enunciation, pronunciation, and articulation. And people talk about that all the time, but what is it really? I'm going to have to know what it is, but I want to give you the right definition. Enunciation is the act of pronouncing words. Make sure that your enunciation is clear when ordering in a restaurant, so you don't get French flies instead of French fries. That would be terrible. Enunciation comes from the Latin word, and I can't even see it from here. Well, I'll spell it. Enuntiotionem. And believe it or not, I minored in Latin, and I don't know how to say it. Latin's a language, as dead can be. First it killed the Romans, now it's killing me. That's all that I know how to say. Anyway, that word, enunciation, means declaration, okay? Then pronunciation. So what is pronunciation? The slight difference between pronunciation and enunciation is that pronunciation is the act of making sounds or articulating words, while enunciation is the way of articulating words and distinctly according to the rules governing the language. Boy, is that a mouthful. Pronounce defines how a word is spoken. And then, so what is articulation? I'll tell you, that's the most important thing. Articulation refers to the uses of your speech organs, such as the tongue, jaws, lips, etc., in order to produce sounds, while pronunciation refers to the way words need to be sounded when speaking, and is often used to mean enunciation, speaking clearly instead of mumbling or slurring. Now, did I totally confuse y'all? If I did, I apologize. Some of them mean the same. Articulation, again, is using everything that you bring to the table. And we talked briefly about that. It's your lips, your tongue, your teeth, your palate, especially your jaws. And you could see that Lisa Marie was using all of those to her best benefit. Next is pace. What's pace? we're very unique. You're all unique. We're all different. Sometimes we adapt to certain things that other people do that fit our niche. But it may not be ours. So you can try it, but you're also going to have to find what works best for you. Some of you have stronger voices, some of you have softer voices, some have a higher registry, others have lower. The main thing is that you will come across in your dictation fast proceedings, and then you're going to have someone who speaks very slowly, whether they speak precisely or whether they gobble their words and you're not sure what they're saying. Pace. You need to dictate on your terms. You don't need to follow the speaker's terms. Their words, yes. But if they speed up, you don't have to speed up because your words will become distorted. This is in the higher speeds. It's going to happen more and more and more as you advance from where you are now. So your pace is your pace. If you can't hold that whole great big mouthful of words, use one of those forgiveness phrases, okay? Or use one of those placeholders, but that's pace. You also need to perfect your pauses. Pauses are magical. I can be talking to you and I can just continue to speak without taking a break, and this is what I sound like, and by the time I get through, you're really, really tired of it, and when I take a pause, you go, oh, she's about to say something I need to listen to again. And that's okay. But we need to pay attention to those pauses. Take advantage of every one of them. If they pause, you can pause. You're still lagging behind them. So you've still got words that you need to put out there for Dragon to recognize and drop. However, sometimes they take long pauses, sometimes short ones. Every chance you get, you make your time. Remember, you're not keeping up with them exactly. They're not in charge. You are. You can take a moment. You can take a breath. Then you can begin to dictate again. And I promise you, your recognition will improve. So you set the pace. You have the benefit again of pausing with your foot pedal, and take advantage of that if you need to, especially while you're learning. All of these components will come together, and once you get it down, you will be able to hear, think, speak at 225 words a minute, period, just the way that I am trying to do now, period. You will be able to insert a little bit of punctuation, remember, to help Dragon understand you better. Now, how do you learn to talk faster? This is the most fun that I think I've ever had. This is called talking with a pencil in your mouth. And you're going to think that that's the craziest thing that you've ever heard. And I promise you, it kind of is. I know that some of you, by reading the threads, you've worked together. You've got people there that you will help each other with things. I'd love to see a couple of you find a partnership, or maybe even more, and you can go around and first of all, you can take dictations. You're going to have a pencil in your mouth. See if I can find a pencil. I'm going to use a pen.
Hey, Diane, can you unshare your screen so we can see your face full?
What am I doing?
Stop sharing your screen.
Okay. That's what you need to do. Get a Kleenex. You're going to be spitting. Okay? Get a pen. Get a pencil. Put your feet flat on the floor. You know, come on. Lift your shoulders, roll them back. Make sure you're breathing, or you're all ready to go. This time, you are going to play audio. You are going to repeat that audio with a pencil in your mouth. You can do it. It may be hard for the first 5 minutes. Eventually, do it for 15 or 20 minutes. And here's what happens. Once you get through, you will then repeat it again, what you just did, or portions of it. I promise you, your recognition will be much, much improved, because this forces you to use everything that's in your speech organs, okay? Like, a short while ago, we were talking about rhythm and speed of language, period. Knowing how to talk fast while articulating our words clearly and correctly is among the characteristics required of a radio broadcaster. Normally in radio, we use 1,000 velocity to concentrate dialogue that sits within a short time, 60 to 90 seconds, period. Among the useful techniques to improve your speed and voice articulation is the so-called pencil in the mouth technique, period. The explanation lies in the name. Just bite a pencil and read a text for 10 to 20 minutes each day, holding the pencil between your teeth exactly like in the picture. I'll give you a picture. When reading a text with a pencil in your mouth or a pen or a highlighter, your face and jaw muscles work much more than usual, period. After the first 5 to 10 minutes of reading, try rereading the text without the pencil, period. You'll notice immediately how your reading speed and quality of voice articulation have improved. Remember not to try this with small objects which might get swallowed, and of course, if you feel any discomfort in your jaw, then you should stop immediately, exclamation point. Heavenly days. Okay. This pen is much thicker than a pencil. Pencils, if they're wooden, you can sort of clamp down on. But do you get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you? This is going to make everything work better. Again, we're trying to create a skill that will last you going forward. Once you've got that skill, it's going to get better each and every day for that 30-day period. But then once after that, at least every week, maybe 2 weeks at the farthest out, go ahead and do it again. Do the breathing technique, speak with a pencil in your mouth. You've got to keep nurturing that skill or you will forget it. We are creatures of habit. We are going to go back to this terrible way of speaking that we always have. If I'm talking to you, you only have to understand every 5th word to know the gist of what I'm saying, okay? Dragon has to hear every word, without those breath sounds and articulate it. I find right now that even after having that stupid pen in my mouth, I am actually using my mouth more. Can you see that? Okay. Lagging and pause dictation, we talked about it a little bit. There are certain things you always lag, but again, you control your delivery. The speaker's going to control theirs. You control your delivery. You are after getting good recognition, and you have the ability to control it. We don't just do one thing. You'll be simultasking. It would be very beneficial if you get to the point where even at the higher speeds, you can keep your foot pressed on that foot pedal and stay up with them and still have your recognition at 95, 97, 98, 99% accuracy. It's doable. It's a skill. Everybody can learn a skill, but we don't know what we don't know. So you have to learn it, okay? Simultasking, certain things you can do to build the fact that you can lag just a little bit. I say, get out a piece of paper. You're going to be numbering down that paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 100. Not bad. While you're dictating. Hear, think, say. Introduce something else. I hate the word multitasking because something falls to the wayside. That's not an accurate word in my vocabulary. Simultasking, that means I'm Superwoman or Superman. I think there's a gentleman, I'm not sure. Anyway, I have these little itty bitty pictures, so please don't, it's not, I can't hear you, Michelle. What?
We do have a couple of gentlemen in our group.
I thought so. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, little itty bitty thumbnails. And remember, I didn't even know that I had my stupid glasses on. So that was pretty embarrassing. Sometimes you let it all hang out. All right. So 1 to 100. I promise you it'll be difficult in the beginning. You're going to drop words. Remember to use your forgiveness phrases or to use something else. You can do insert, whatever it is. You will learn that you will have certain words that go together that mean something else. And I mentioned it to you briefly, like legent, which stands for ladies and gentlemen, comma. You can even add a comma in there. So that's one less that you have to add. And since you are calling to that individual, you know that that comma is appropriate. So legent, ladies and gentlemen. Legente, one extra syllable. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with a comma. Keep on going. One less thing you have to scope and add. You will have some time that you can pick up on that, but you need to learn how to do other things, not just follow blop, 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 blop. Word, 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 word. You do that in the beginning. When you start phrasing, when you start lagging so that you can hear them, hold them in your brain, and say them all at once, that's when Dragon understands you the best, because you're showing that word relationship, but you've defined it and at your speed. Okay. Let's see. Oh, maybe I should read this. Why am I doing this? Talking about simultasking. While our brains are truly, truly amazing, we only develop and use a very small amount of what they are capable of. Developing your mind to work simultaneously in 2 channels is the beginning of being able to unconsciously listen, think, speak. You'll find over time that you can do many things at the same time you're dictating and still dictate every word verbatim. And as an example, when I learned to be able to write notes either to the attorney or to the judge while I'm never missing a word, or I'm going, oh, I forgot to do that. I'm doing my to-do list over here on the side. I'm writing out what I need to buy at the grocery store. That's what I'm talking about. Our brains are capable of so much more than we ever ask of them. And what a glorious opportunity. You know, this is just, it's fascinating, and you're going to love it. And it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I'm sorry, I'm taking way, way, way too much time. Questions? I think I'm done. Anybody?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, didn't mean to yell.
Yeah. No problem. I know how excited I get when somebody asks a question.
Can you tell?
Yeah.
Do I need my glasses on or off? Okay.
Okay, so my question is, do you think that getting your mind to simultask is actually helpful in making you focus more on the dictation?
Absolutely. I do this, I dictate on autopilot. That's the skill that you're striving for, okay?
Right.
Autopilot. This is going on over here. It's what I hear it, I think it, and it almost immediately happens. It's no longer, It's and out my mouth while I'm doing other things. I said the example of just start with a piece of paper 1 to 100, then develop it a little bit more. Write your name. Next time, write all the family members' names. Remember, you're concentrating on this, but you're still hearing, you're still speaking. Do your address. Anything to develop that skill, and that's what it is. That means that anybody can do it. Anyone can do it.
But it's not easy.
No,
It's not easy. And that's one thing that I think that everyone needs to hear. We know it's not easy.
No, it's not.
In there, but it is attainable, is I think what we're trying to say.
Absolutely.
One thing I should mention too, for those of you who feel like you're maybe lagging behind, you know, since we started this 23 years ago now.
This will be 24, Mitch.
24, yeah. Audio Scribe and my son were born the same year. And so there have been people who have had success right out of the box because Dragon liked their voice. and they had good diction skills. But there have been people who have had to struggle more. So don't feel like because you're not maybe doing as well as your neighbor that you're not going to succeed. With a little perseverance and work, everyone can succeed.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And once you get those skills, please don't lose them. I promise you, it'll take 30 days to learn that skill. It'll take you less than 2 weeks to forget it.
Yeah, and one thing I had mentioned at the beginning of this is, you know, when I was working on it, if you're driving, if, you know, I drive to Baton Rouge to see my kids about once a week, and I put on like a public radio or a news station, and I practice talking while I'm driving. I'm not talking into the mask, but what I'm doing is I'm practicing the skill of re-speaking, which is the cornerstone for what you're doing. So, you know, if you don't do it for a couple of weeks, you know, when you get back from a vacation of a week, you'll find that your recognition is not as good because maybe you're not articulating or you haven't practiced the skill, right, Dianne?
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And that's a wonderful way to do it if you're driving in the car. And if you don't have that opportunity, again, set aside just a few minutes. Years ago, well, a few years ago, I was at a seminar and I was told that machine writers, now understand, I do not like the word steno writers. That's the name brand of equipment that they use. I may be the lone voice in the wilderness, but I keep saying that please use voice writers and please use machine writers, because that's really what we are. You don't have to agree with me. That's okay. I can accept what you say, but that's what I say. And now I forgot what I was going to say. So where was I going? Okay.
Can I ask a
What?
question?
Please.
Good morning, Ms. Dianne.
Good morning.
I have a little space between my two front teeth.
Mhm.
And usually when I'm speaking, I hear this hissing. Is this going to affect how Dragon understands, interprets what I say?
I think with looser jaws, lips, all of that, that it may not eradicate it completely. I don't know, because I haven't heard you and the level that you think that you're dealing with,
Okay.
but I know that it will improve, because the more you do this, the less air that's going to be going through that space that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And keep in mind that we all sound different.
Absolutely.
And we all have little oddities. For instance, years ago, after I started with AudioScribe, probably 4 years after, I was very sick and in the hospital with meningitis. And that's swelling around your brain, and it affects your memory. It affected my speech. So I would say QMAC and AMAC. After my meningitis, my QMAC and AMAC stopped working completely because I had developed a lisp when I was ill. And it ended up going away after many, many years, but it changed the way that I spoke. And so I had to create a whole new user. Dragon no longer understood me at all. So that can happen. And I believe that your recognition when you begin speaking at 100 words a minute and your recognition when you get to 150, it's going to be very different. And then your recognition at 180, very different. And then again, when you hit 200, there are going to be parts that you get to, and it's different for all of us, where you kind of hit the wall and say, gosh, I'm really having trouble. I'm really, really having trouble with this speed. I believe Diane's pencil is the answer. I really, really do.
Now,
and keep in mind that when you have a cold or you have bronchitis or asthma and it's flaring up, those things will make a difference in your recognition as well, because you will sound different. I also have TMJ, and my jaw makes a clicking sound. And we had a customer who got in an accident and it flared her TMJ really bad for about 6 months. And so she had to create a user and try to accommodate where Dragon didn't understand the clicking noise that her jaw was making.
And again, you're in control of those things. I'd like to add one thing, and I'm not sure this is what I was going to say. I did mention that I like 3 ways to do everything, okay? 1 will fail, 2 will fail, 3 hasn't. Right now, you're using Keek and Cack because you're in real-time coach. That's wonderful. That's very, very good. That didn't come along when I first started. I mean, there were many years between QCO and ACO, or QMAC and AMAC. At one point in time, our speaker codes, we didn't say speed 1, speed 2, speed 3. You know, oh, you're going to love this. For the court, everything was Mac, right? Adrian's laughing. She goes, that's Big Mac, okay? That was Big Mac. That's what we did.
Yeah, so I think the point that she was trying to make is if like trend 1, trend 2, if those don't work for you, you can find other ways of dictating them. And if you go to your the C drive, to File Explorer, to the C drive, to Topic Files, and to Marker Files and Word Lists, you will find, we don't want you to bring in all of these lists right now. It's on an as needed basis, but in that folder, you will find speakers 1 through 50 with, instead of SPE1, it might be MAC1, or the untranslates with a different written form. And of course, no, I'm sorry, with a different spoken form. And you can change any of these as long as you put them in the proper format to be something that works for you. So if you're having trouble with a specific way of speaking, you can actually change it. And as I said, in that folder, there's untranslates 1 through 20 with Tran 1, and there's the same ones 1 through 20 with Mac 1, Mac 2. So if you're having trouble with that, you can switch them. There's also the same thing with the speakers. Now, of course, you know, you couldn't use the speakers as Macs and the untranslates, but if you're having trouble with one, you could always look here for some of the other things we have suggested.
Yes. I'm sorry. That time it wasn't my internet. My internet was still on. I do not know why I got kicked out, but I think I experienced maybe something akin to what a few of you have expressed in the past, or maybe I'm just making that up. But honestly, I wasn't here. Now I'm back. 3 ways to do everything. You're using Keek and Cack. Michelle's absolutely right. I always have 3 ways. I use Keek, Cack, ACO, QCO, ACO. I use 4 things. QMAC, AMAC, and then a few years ago, I had the chance to go the trip of a lifetime. I went to Egypt. Dragon loves hard consonants. I got this whole wealth of new words that I could use that Dragon doesn't understand. So it accepts whatever I tell it, such as Karnak, KK, Karnak, Felucca, that's a type of a boat. Those types of things, Dragon just always got. You may lose 1, you may lose 2. Dragon quits recognizing, doesn't make Q's and A's lay down, doesn't do speaker codes or something of that type. I call it spanking Dragon. Now, you know, that's not in my nature on any level, I promise you, okay? I'm not into that, just saying. Dragon, that's a different story. I get so mad with Dragon, I can punch it sometimes. Here's what I do. If I am dictating and I'm saying QCO, ACO, or Keek, Cack, and Dragon quits laying it down, it doesn't put in the speaker code, so then all of the things run together, or you get some odd word and then something else happens, I pause for a moment and I'm going, I'm in charge. And I change what I say. I'll say, QCO. Please state your name for the record. ACO. My name is Dianne Lane. QCO. Where do you live, Miss Lane? ACO. I live in Decatur, DeKalb County, Georgia. As soon as Dragon, because remember, Dragon learns heuristically. It goes, oh, wait a minute. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe it takes a half a page, but I'll be darned. Dragon's putting down the Q's and A's, and then I can go back to my preferred way of doing it, and Dragon doesn't miss again. So that's spanking Dragon. I make Dragon do what I want it to do. You're in charge, okay? Any more questions? No? No questions?
We did have a question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I would like to ask a question to Adria. She was speaking about backing up your profile. Are you saying that when you don't back up your profile, does it cause your accuracy or your speed to drop?
No, not at all. No, it will not. The reason, first of all, backing up your profile is something you can only do inside of Dragon, and it's very simple. I can show you how, but it will automatically back up for you every 5th time you go to dictate. But we export it weekly so that we know we are making a copy of our progress so that we won't have to go too far back if we mess up. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I also have to ask another question.
Please do.
Right, concerning the pauses, what Ms. Dianne was speaking about?
The pausing?
Yes, and doesn't Dragon recognize that as a drop word?
No. When you pause, Dragon recognizes a pause. And for me, I think we had talked about this last week, maybe I was talking to a different customer, but the problem that I learned early in my trying to learn how to re-speak was that for me specifically, if a word ended with a D and the next word started with a D, if I didn't pause between them, one of the words were wrong. Like maybe I didn't completely say the ending D. I usually am good about saying the word beginnings, but it's on word endings that I tend to let it drift away. And that is where I've seen my recognition go downhill, when I don't successfully end that word. This is a good question. How many user profiles is recommended to have at this point? I think that you should always maintain at least 2 user profiles, a primary and a backup, which means for you, if you have a mask and a headset, you should have at least 4. A primary headset, a backup headset, a primary mask, and a backup mask. But Michelle is right that maintaining 1 user is enough, but you can't have the same user for a headset and a mask. At the higher speeds, when I pause, it registers as dropped words. Do you mean, Gita, do you mean in Real-Time Coach? Okay. It would have to be because you did actually drop words, because it won't bother you pausing briefly will not matter if you still say the words. But if you drop words while you're pausing, then it's going to show that those words did not get spoken, or it didn't interpret that you spoke them. Does that make sense?
Apparently, Adria, after every, before you ask a question,
May I add one thing?
like you're saying Cuco, there's a drop word and then there's a question.
The Cuco will be like a dropped word because Real-Time Coach doesn't recognize the Cuco and the ACO. It causes it to kick you out. So if your Keek and Cack is trained properly, then it should write your Q and your A and not see that as dropped words. But if you use the QCO and ACO, it may see it as a dropped word because Real-Time Coach doesn't recognize the QCO and ACO. It tends to kick you out because of the formatting involved with it.
I do have a question, Adria. I was working with someone yesterday, and though she had trained the Keek and Cack the way that you had recommended in the video, I think that perhaps it had been trained to do QCO and ACO, because when she said QCO and ACO, and I don't think it had the proper formatting because it wasn't on a new line. And I think that Real-Time Coach is expecting that. Is that correct?
Yes, you are correct. And I believe that in the video I did. Oh, good. I'm glad about that, Karen, that QCO and ACO works for you in Real-Time Coach. Michelle is quite correct. As long as you go in and you create a Q colon, and you can call it Keek and Cack, you can call it QCO, ACO, but the point is that Real-Time Coach does not like our asterisk, Q asterisk, and asterisk, A asterisk if the formatting includes a tab or a new line, whereas if we create the Q colon and we go into word properties in Dragon and say add a new line and add 2 spaces after and capitalize the next, then it works fine. QMAC and AMAC can work fine as well. If it's not kicking you out, even though it's using the asterisk Q asterisk and asterisk A asterisk, then I'm fine with it. That's great. We just don't want it kicking you out. That's the whole reason why we did the little video for Keek and Cack.
And that typically, if you're using QCO and ACO and the video does not like that, it will pretty much kick you out immediately. It won't be where you dictate half of the dictation and then it stops. That typically is internet. But you say QCO, please state your name for the record, and it stops almost immediately. That is an indication that it's because the formatting is incorrect. And remember, in that instance, if you make sure that your Real-Time Coach style is selected, you won't have that problem. I don't have that problem. But also, I had a question that you could not change the style. And at this point, you need to make sure when you're creating a new job that the case is set to none, because that is the only way that you can change the style. If you're using the basic style, if you're using any other style at this point besides Real-Time Coach, you will have those problems. So if you have that problem and it kicks you out of the dictation, close out of Transcriptionist, go back to the main menu. You can double click on the job and it'll open up the job information screen and it'll show you the case and the style, and make sure that the style is set to Real-Time Coach. If it is not, close out of it, create a new job, move on, set none for your case, and then set Real-Time Coach for your style. And then you shouldn't have any problems. If you do, let us know. We can make sure that your Keek and Cack are set up properly and move forward with that.
That was me yesterday. A deal.
Okay. Now, there is another question that says, should we delete the dictations in Transcriptionist when we are finished with the dictation? And I believe the answer is no. It's good to see your work. It's good to see your progress because, this really is a lot of work and you guys are doing it and seeing it. Maybe once class is over, you can go in and delete everything, but it's a good reference to show all of the work and practice you put into this, in my opinion.
I agree. And also another thing that if you retain the dictation, you can go back and use that for correction mechanism, which you should be doing by now. And there are videos on how to do correction mechanism. Remember that you should only do correction mechanism for a maximum of 15 minutes. And the reason I ask you not to do more than that is because I believe all of us are capable of perfection for about 15 minutes. But after that, we're getting distracted by just modern society. People will distract us. Things will distract us. And when you're distracted, you're going to make mistakes. And we had someone this week, I think, or the end of last week, that had done correction, and then the user profile just went bad. And that's usually an indication that you weren't doing correction right. The point that you need to remember about correction mechanism is you cannot add anything that you did not say. So if you did not say comma, you cannot put in a comma. If you did not say your keek, you can't put in a keek. If you didn't say period, you can't put in a period. So you can only change the text to match exactly what you hear when the utterance highlights in orange and plays back your voice. So that is crucial. And one of the things that right now we want you to make mistakes, because then we can address them and tell you how to correct them. Instead of creating a new user from scratch, what you would have wanted to do was import the user you exported last. That would be your most current good user.
And one thing that you all need to know is that when you're doing correction mechanism, if you have multiple users, you have to remember what user you were dictating with to be able to do correction. If you open up an incorrect user and try to do correction, you can damage your user profile, and sometimes it will not work. So that's very important. And on the handy that you got, the laminated sheets that you got, the rules of correction mechanism are listed there. Make sure you follow them. If you said echo and it put up echo, you don't want to correct a-co. It has to be to the written form of the word versus the spoken form of the word. And that written form of the word is asterisk, a asterisk. This is a big problem. This is the most common, I think, reason that markers quit working, because once you put in, instead of putting asterisk, a asterisk, if you put in a comma, a hyphen co, then what you have is a conflict, because now you have a co with the asterisk, a asterisk, and you have a co with a hyphen co. So I believe next week we will maybe look at, and I'm not sure if that's the case, but we will look at your word vocabulary editor and delete any of those words that conflict. And so for those of you who are having problems and we have to do, work with you, that is one of the things we will look at in your vocabulary to make sure there are not words that are conflicting with your markers. Because, if you get every A wrong, that's many errors in the dictation. And so you kind of are starting from a bad place. So keep that in mind. And I think Dianne had something else to say, right?
Maybe. I kind of remember what I was going to say before, and now it's probably of no consequence whatsoever. You're spending an awful lot of time, and you're working and you're absorbing all of these things. But I was talking about how you need to practice outside of a work setting for just a few minutes every day for that 30 days, and then revisit again every couple of weeks or you'll lose it. The other thing is that years ago, I went to a seminar, and it was a seminar with both machine writers and voice writers. And that's where I got lost, because I was explaining to you why I said this instead of that. I need to stop it. However, when the machine writers were talking about outside of class practice, they had to fill out a sheet and someone had to sign it. They were asked to practice an additional 19 hours per week. That's just unbelievable. And then someone suggesting, well, why don't voice writers practice maybe half of that time? an hour, hour and a half a night. And I wish that you would just practice by sitting in front of a mirror and paying attention to your posture and paying attention to your voice organs. And that would be enough. If you could do that for 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the most, add a pencil in your mouth, that's going to be another 15 or 20. Do that every day for 30 days and then revisit it once every couple of weeks. You're golden after that, but you got to create the skill. And that's what I was going to say.
That is very good. One thing that someone asked was if Michelle would explain the real-time rules. And real-time rules are actually something that can be very, very helpful to you guys. We see real-time rules. Let's see.
Okay, do you want me to talk about it, or?
Please do, yes.
For example, I was working with someone on a dictation, and it was a Q&A dictation, and it was the thorough training. And the gentleman who was being deposed was Mr. Talisman. And Dragon was putting up Talisman correctly, but it was spelled wrong. It was putting up TALISMANN, where in fact in the video it needed to have 2 L's. Okay, and so for that purpose, creating a real-time rule that would take Mr. Talisman with just 1 L and replacing it, and it was also not putting a period after Mr. I don't know why. So what I did is I created a real-time rule that said, if you see Mr. Talisman with 1 L, always replace it with Mr. Talisman with 2 L's. And so, did you want to show them how to add that, Adria?
Yes, I'll do that. Okay, so let me make sure that we're seeing.
Yes, we are seeing I see your whole screen, and Transcriptionist is in the middle of it.
Okay, great. Okay, so we can do this from the main menu, or we can actually do it from inside the dictation screen. We go to Edit and Real-Time Rules, and we can just click on Add Word or Phrase or Word. And Michelle was talking about Talisman. So it's we're replacing T-A.
It would have been capital T.
Okay. That we're replacing
MANN, 2 N's.
Okay.
Okay.
With
2 L's. Yep. Everything else is the same except for the second L.
Okay. So we're replacing TALISMANN with TALLISMANN. And all we have to do now is click on Add Rule. And if we close out of here and we go to Edit Words, we can see that the word talisman and the replacement talisman has been added to our word replacements list. And there is a video on real-time rules on our website.
Yeah, just so you all know, real-time rules are absolute. So when it sees the word talisman with 1 L, it will always replace it with talisman with 2 L's. And I've seen questions saying, why is my dictated text red? And the reason your dictated text may be red, you may have part of it black and part of it red when you're dictating. When you have a real-time rule within an utterance, the whole utterance is going to be red, because you cannot, if you go into correction mechanism, you cannot make changes to that utterance, because the red text indicates to you that SpeechCat has made changes to the text that Dragon gave SpeechCat, and therefore those changes, you cannot do correction mechanism in Dragon because we affected those changes. And so you have to completely ignore that utterance and move to the next. But don't be alarmed when you see the red text, because that's what it is. It was from a real-time rule.
Very good. Okay, so I'm going to put the link to this video in the chat.
Could
so
we
that,
also put it in Skype?
Yes, let me do that. That's a much better idea.
Yes. And that way they have it to reference today, tomorrow, next week, the week after,
Right.
whatever.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you all for being such an attentive class this week. Continue the good work, because many of you have done all of your dictations. I'm very proud of you. For those of you who are struggling, please reach out. Adrienne and I are here to help you. And we can definitely, we want you to succeed. So if it means us listening to your voice, and please don't be, a lot of working court reporters who have been doing this for years don't want anybody to listen to their voice. So you're new. We listen to your voice. We can make recommendations. If we think there's an issue, we might, get Dianne to listen to it and make suggestions, but we're here for you and we want to be here for you. And just remember that.
And thank you all. And I hope you all have a lovely carnival next week. Wow. Someone did ask a very good question. We will not be expecting all of your work to be done this coming Monday. Rather, we will expect all your work to be done the following Monday, because of course we do not have class next week because of Carnival. So you all have a fantastic Carnival. Stay safe. Have a good time. And we will see you in 2 weeks from today instead of 1 week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.